Folks, what the crap's going on? HeirofCarthage here, and we are going to be back in Rome 2 with some Epirus versus Baktria gameplay here. This should be fun. We haven't seen a ton of Baktria since I've restarted these, and of course Epirus is not a super common pick because these successor state factions tend to be pretty weak and are not something that people like to comment into multiplayer. Now, in fact, I think most of you are pretty much on board that one of the successor states, obviously such as Macedon or Syracuse. I say successor states. Syracuse is just more of a standard Greek faction, but you all know what I mean. Of those Greek/successor factions that you all agreed they were probably the worst in the game, as far as what most of you came to a conclusion on. Now, obviously, some people disagree with that, and that's fine. That was the purpose of that video, though, was to kind of feel out what people thought. In any case, let's take a look at this Epirot army. There's 3 slingers up front. We have a militia hoplite, it looks like, on both flanks. It also looks like there's Tarentine cavalry on one flank over there. Let's take a look at the rest of the army. It looks like just some standard fare hoplites across the middle, 3 of those. And then for melee infantry, we've got a Samnite warrior, Italian sword, Samnite, Italian sword, and I would assume another Samnite. Yep. And then some Thurio spears, it looks like, supporting the flank, so a good choice. And then we're going to have Thessalian cavalry, which is a lighter shot cavalry. It still comes in as heavy, but it's not quite as heavy, obviously, as the bigger boys here, like this Hellenic Royal Cav. So that is the Epirot army, and for Baktria, we can see a horse skirmisher rolling down either flank. Now, horse skirmishers come in with really nice javelin damage, otherwise a very cheap unit. Take a look at the Bactrian army, and typical for Baktria, they're not going to be amazing with infantry, but they can bring a pretty nice cavalry punch and some decent skirmishing if they wanted to. They've got some Eastern slingers. These are pretty cost-effective slingers that do some nice damage. We've got some Bactrian hillmen and Thurio spears, Eastern spearmen up front, so a very weak front line. They're going to be backed up by thorax swords, which is probably some of the best that Baktria has to offer in terms of infantry. And then we've got some noble horse. So the Bactrian noble horse is a very potent heavy melee cavalry, for the price at least. And then we've got a Bactrian royal cav back here, which is going to be similar to that Hellenic royal guard. So 2 factions who are not going to be infantry powerhouses going toe-to-toe. Baktria definitely holding a melee cavalry advantage here over Epirus, but we'll just kind of see how all this plays out. This Thessalian cavalry is coming forward. It's going to be countered by the Bactrian noble horse. Lots of javelins flying in, militia hoplites reinforcing, so cheap Bactrian hillmen trying to get their money's worth by helping out in the cav fight. Let's see what's happened across the line. That was the only cavalry charge I've seen across the line. Thorax swords kind of coming in to replace the Thurio spears. That's probably a good idea. Those Thurio spears might want to pull back and live to throw a javelin another day. It's like thorax swords coming to reinforce here again now that the charges have taken place. And the Bactrian noble horse took a pretty good beating along with the Thessalian cavalry in that fight, so I would say that was fairly neutral in terms of result, but the Bactrian royal cavalry right now is getting absolutely pounded by the slingers, and that's going to take a ton of hit points off. They're going to have to fall back out of range. They took another volley. This time, I'm surprised they didn't drop a unit model. Now the noble horse is going to become the object of fire. Now they will actually block a few of those missile shots with their shields, but a lot of sling fire coming in on the Bactrian noble horse, so a nice job by Epirus there trying to deal with that superior cavalry force. And so far, Baktria not having to use that superior cavalry force. Let's take a look at the Eastern slingers, see what they're shooting at. This one appears to maybe be firing back at just another slinger unit. A lot of fire coming into the Bactrian cavalry, trying to soften it up prior to another fight. That's probably a good idea. This Thessalian cavalry is coming out here to just try and slow down the Bactrians on this flank. There's no way it can hope to win anything over there. The thorax swords were brought into combat in a pretty smart way, I think, after most of the charges took place. The only place where they're not doing well is over here against the Samnite. And then there could be, like here, the Samnites coming in afterwards, so it'll do pretty well there depending on some other factors. Of course, that hillman is way overmatched by that one. But a lot of cavalry now sweeping around for Baktria. Their slingers are still free. They've got an Eastern spear, and their general's still under center. So they've got a lot of support at home. Thurio spears now making their presence felt, throwing their javelins in. Let's take a look at this Bactrian cavalry. Thurio spear back here, going to be a nice deterrent. But it's not going to be enough to stop all of the cavalry that's headed their way, so I feel Epirus is about to lose their skirmishing component. The Hellenic Royal Cav General gets involved with some noble horse out here, and so far the Royal Cavalry is in pretty good shape, and it's got the support of militia hoplites and slingers, so it's doing pretty good so far. Let's just kind of keep an eye out here in the center. These eastern slingers are kind of picking away at the flanks. I almost feel like this mercenary Samnite warrior has got its back exposed to that slinger quite well. I'm surprised it's going for the hoplite. Let's see where these noble horse get to. They got torn up pretty badly going after those slingers. They're going to go for the other slinger though, but then the Royal Cav's going to counter. So Baktria is very quickly losing a lot of its mobility component. It needs to get these, noble horse away from those hoplites, which they just did. And then as far as the infantry fight, it's really probably going somewhat in favor of Epirus. I say somewhat. I think it's going solidly in favor of Epirus at the moment. But I mean, neither faction's just having an awesome time of it, if I have to look at it honestly here. Like, I mean, no one's just walking away with it, but maybe a slight lead for Epirus in the infantry department. But both players, like, I could see red morale up here. I wonder if the Epirus general, he's probably dead. If not, he's about to be dead. So the Epirus general may have fallen, which is why we're seeing that lower morale shock going through there. I can't tell though. It doesn't say the general has recently died on any of these little screens here, so somehow I might still be alive at only 5 units left, which would be pretty impressive. Now says they're wavering. Let's see what happens here. If the Epirus lose their general, this could be pretty poor timing for them. That's insane, though, that the general hasn't died, down to 3 units. That almost seems difficult to believe. Down to 2 units. I still haven't seen the dead general thing pop up, unless he died earlier and they've just already gotten over it. That is still absolutely unreal. Okay, finally, it looks like the Epirus Hellenic Royal Cav broke. I don't even know where it's at to see whether the general's died. Yeah, right there. The general did die. He was like the last person in the unit to die. It looks like his unit came all the way over here. I just saw it disappear. So I think there was maybe one other soldier left in the bodyguard before the general died. So what an epic stud there, surviving till the end. It's actually now looking pretty decent for Baktria, because Bactria still got their slingers. With the death of the Epirus general, these units will start to suffer some morale loss, and now you've also got a heavy shot cavalry free into the late game, and this thing is going to be an unholy terror for the Epirus troops to deal with. Now this Samnite turning around, trying to counter the charge. They are winning their combat previously, so that'll help them, and they are heavily armored, which will help some as well. So not a massive hit there from the Royal Cavalry, but it is a hit, and it's taking its toll. There's reinforcing infantry units to come and try and help finish this off. We finally saw a waver there from the Samnites. If they rout, that's really going to suck for Epirus. No, looks like they stabilized. It's going to be a cycle charge here, though. So the Samnites aren't going to be able to take this for too long because they're being attacked by multiple units. This will, flip it over to losing slightly, and we should see their morale start to pay a price there. Let's check out this fight over here. We got a couple of thorax swords grinding it out. And there are some cavalry units nearby that are attempting to do some morale penalties here. So, understandable. Let's go back over here and check, make sure the Bactrians don't lose. What would suck for the Bactrians is if they lose their general early, after the other one went down to the wire. Nice job getting rid of those Samnite warriors, though. So the Bactrian Royal Cavalry paying dividends, being alive, and the Slingers looks like they don't have daggers out, so that one still has ammunition, and so does this one. So the Slingers potentially still able to cause a lot of damage in this fight on this big infantry blob over here. So even if the Epirus survive it, it's not likely that they can win. So Baktria has cleaned up their left flank, and it looks like only the right. Oh, I think it was their left flank. I might have this reversed. I don't know. But yeah, just a little pocket of Epirus left fighting over here. Some hoplites, Thurio spears. They're all going to rout due to army losses. So a pretty close battle here, all in all. Even though you see a lot of Bactrian flags still on here, it's still a pretty close fight, all in all. And it was close most of the time. So a good one. Win that replay. So Costanza here actually was sole Invictus, and so he did lose that close fight here. No doubt he was shouting Serenity now, based on the name. But yeah, Baktria ends up coming up with the win here. So despite not having the best infantry, you're going up against a faction who also doesn't have the best infantry. I miss these Molossian dogs at first as well. Those can be handy units in getting rid of, key targets like horse skirmishers or something else of that variety. So neither faction's coming into this with great infantry. Thorax swords, though, ended up performing pretty darn well, I think, overall, considering how poor this unit is on the whole. Some of the Samnite warriors found success, though, 2 of them picking up chevrons. So a pretty solid performance from them, all things considered as well. And then that Hellenic Royal Cavalry General really held out for a very long time. The weight of Bactria's cavalry really came to bear here, though, and it ended up paying off because with those 4 noble horse, it took everything Epirus had to try and get rid of them. And then by the time that was done, you still had this Bactrian Royal Cavalry running around, pretty much doing whatever it wanted to. And that's just a little too much to handle late into the game. So, like I said, interesting fight here between factions who, kind of struggle with the infantry. Baktria can punch a very nice weight with its cavalry, though, and they ended up doing so. Epirus was not able to quite seal the deal here. So a couple of factions less often picked. Hope you all enjoyed that one. Sorry I have been so absent this last week, but work has been absolutely bananas and is going to continue to be that way probably for a week or 2 longer. And it just has left me with very little time to record, so I'm doing the best I can, and I will continue to get you all the action I can. HeirofCarthage signing out for now. I'll see you all soon.